Hello and welcome to PeopleGoal's weekly webcast where we discuss the latest HR topics to help you thrive. My name is Maddie and I'm an HR growth analyst here at PeopleGoal, and I'm delighted to welcome you to this webcast which is going to centre around HR trends for 2021. I hope you've listened to our last webcasts where we've discussed employee engagement, feedback culture, performance reviews and migrating goals to the remote environment. You can check out all of those at peoplegoal.com/webcasts. So today on the webcast, I have with me Chrissa and James. So if we could start with some brief introductions, that would be great. And Chrissa, let's start with you.
Hello, thank you, Maddie. I'm Chrissa. I'm an HR professional working for tech companies over the last years. I'm very happy to participate in this week's webcast.
Hi guys, I'm James. I'm an HR growth analyst. I'm quite new to the HR scene, but I'm still really excited to learn more about the future of HR and see where we're going to end up in 2021.
Our topic for today, as I previously mentioned, is top HR trends for 2021 and beyond. As 2020 draws to a close, we must look ahead to the new year and discuss what to expect from the future of HR. After such a significant shift for the workforce in a short period of time, it's important to develop a better understanding of how to make the most of the new global situation. Today's webcast is going to look a little bit like this. We will start with an introduction comparing work life, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic and beyond. We will then analyse how companies have shifted to accommodate to the pandemic and their responses to the new normal. We will go on to the new era of HR, looking at HR in 2021 and what's changed, and then move on to the evolution of HR and how to shape your approach for next year. We will finish up with some key takeaways and a summary of our key HR trends for 2021.
So great. So I can start with a comparison table that we have prepared, and we can see how work life was before the pandemic and how it looks today, and of course with some predictions for 2021 and onwards. So these are the four categories that have been influenced the most, and I would start first with the workplace. So all of us used to be in an office. However, during 2020, all of us had to move to a remote working location due to lockdowns. And as it seems, for 2021 and onwards, we will have a hybrid model. Hopefully the situation with COVID will get better, so a combination between office and remote workers will exist. In addition, the way we used to manage our time has changed as well. In 2019, most likely our time was managed by our supervisors and our managers. During 2020, we had to self-manage our time and find a balance between personal things that we had to do within our home and also working on our daily tasks. For 2021 and onwards, I believe it will be a combination of things. So we can go from self-managing our times to completely being managed by others. So this needs to be smoothly done. In terms of communication, always we had change in the ways that we communicated between 2019 and 2020. So from face-to-face and interpersonal communication, everything became virtual. So even now our webcast is on a virtual mode. Everything we do is virtually. And for 2021, this, I believe we will have again a combination, since some employees will be in the office while others working remotely. And this again needs to be executed smoothly. Finally, the most important one, and this was a challenge for everyone, we faced a change in the skill set that was required to work. So everyone had to become very fast tech savvy. And in 2019, it was a job role prerequisite, but in 2020, it became a universal prerequisite. And for 2021 and onwards, we can see that it will be an adopted condition where it will be taken for granted. I mean, the tech skills that an employee should have.
I think this slide here is really interesting to have it put out clearly like this, how we have adopted and changed from 2019 to 2020. But the good thing I will take from this is that 2021 is looking that we're going to take the best of both worlds. Whilst it's been devastating, the lack of face-to-face communication in our new remote environments, I think there's also some benefits to the increased use of virtual communication. Therefore, the way that we're looking at 2021 is positively, and that we'll be able to take the best of both to build a stronger workforce.
When we look at how companies responded to the new forces, there's a few different factors that kind of really flared up and became quite obvious in this transition from the office space to the remote working space. For example, there was the need to form crisis management teams in adaptation to everything that was going on. There really had to be concentration on how we're going to deal with the most forefront issue, which is the lack of face-to-face communication. At the same rate, there was a need to monitor business impacts to really understand, whilst also factoring in for the need to cater for this change in almost every form of our daily processes and work, how it's also affecting our business and the different goals, alignment, and all these kind of elements of measurements that we really had to shift and alter with the new circumstances. This also led to an increased focus on employee well-being as people move away from the office and have fewer spontaneous interactions. There really was a need to kind of develop a sort of way for everyone to be able to still keep in touch and ensure that everyone's feeling well and happy in work. Additionally, this shift to leveraging technology to facilitate remote work was really important, and it's without technology, it's almost impossible to think how businesses would have survived through the pandemic. It's because of that we've been able to maintain almost a relatively normal route of going about our daily lives. Then additionally with this, it's also as a result allowed us to have increased communication from corporate leadership, as there's a more uniform and direct channel of communication through different electronic mediums and social medias and such. It's allowed for better communication in some ways. Finally, we've also got the rapid expansion of training opportunities. As the pandemic's brought about a new way of working, there's of course a whole new range of absolutely new ways of working and new opportunities within the work for different roles to take them on.
Great, James. This slide summarized perfectly all the forces that were apparent during the COVID. And I believe the most important point here is the need for increased focus on employee well-being, because this was a subject that we were not covered properly before the pandemic and became very important. And actually it became a necessity to examine employee well-being during the pandemic.
Definitely.
So now we've looked at how some organizations have adapted to the new conditions. Now we're going to look at the new era of HR. So firstly, HR has become more strategic. Throughout 2020, it has sat in the driver's seat, making real impactful decisions to support employees through the pandemic and beyond. Whilst before, perhaps HR had been left on the sideline when it came to strategic decisions, now HR is in the forefront of improving employee experience, as senior leadership teams are realizing or are having more time to prioritize their people as the center of their business. Next, HR has become digital. There has been an increased move away from paper-based processes to digital systems across all facets, from employee onboarding to farewell. And this is mainly due to the shift to remote work. It is impossible to access files that have previously been kept in the office. And this is something that is really positive that has come out of the pandemic, as digital systems save HR departments huge amounts of time. Building on this, HR has also become automated. What we mean by this is that processes such as performance reviews, check-ins, engagement surveys are being sent out using specific automated software. And what this does is save time for HR departments to move away from less important tasks and focus on the ones that matter most. And this is, as I touched upon before, the strategic thinking. This is acting on the data that is being gathered. This is putting people first in the organisation, which moves me on nicely to how HR has become people-centric. Whilst this has been something we've been aware of for a while, it has now been increasingly highlighted by 2020 that we need to place people at the centre of attention, and this will always pay back in both the short and the long term. If your people are happy in your organisation, if they're engaged in their work, they will be more productive, they will have better performance, and the overall organisation will achieve higher rates of success. Finally, HR needs to be agile. It needs to eliminate resistance to change, adopt open to change HR practices and systems. Whilst before processes might have stagnated and been the same for a few years, now HR departments need to be agile enough to pivot quickly and adapt to changing global situations and implement the right practices and systems quickly.
Okay, so one of the processes that has been influenced heavily is the onboarding process. So this is a slide where we would like to cover how we can reinvent the employee experience. And why? Because, for instance, how you onboard remote employees with lockdown restrictions, how you fill paperwork and run buddy programs when you can't be at the office. So the onboarding process is on the spotlight. Let's see how we can reinvent the process and make it relevant again and coherent irrespective of the actual workplace. So first of all, we need to prepare. We need to provide all required information to give new hires clarity for the new role. We need to settle. We need to establish a clear schedule and structure to their work. We need to involve, encourage current employees to prepare for the new recruit. So even give a checklist of the things that they need to go through in order to help the new hire to smoothly transition into the new role. We need to contact frequently, so we need to have regular one-on-one video calls to support and advise. And finally, we need to grow. We need to continue reinforcement by obtaining feedback. So we need to see how the process is running and take corrective action.
Yes, absolutely. And I think all of this can be linked together using or leveraging the new technologies that are available to us now to cover all of these different elements of the remote employee onboarding experience. Such a system will allow you to send out pre-onboarding checklists, to set tasks, to encourage engagement activities, to host one-on-one video calls, and to gain employee feedback on the process.
When it comes to managing this new hybrid workforce, there's a few different factors we need to talk about and try and understand. Firstly, with reskilling, it's important to retrain your employees with a focus on the soft skills needed to succeed in the new environment, such as the likes of resilience, adaptability, remote communication, and change management. Then also looking at transparency, and it's important to ensure goals and objectives are transparent across the organization and to communicate changes frequently and the use of technology to align goals. Speaking of goals, when looking at the goal-based reviews, we can try and work out a way to run reviews more regularly and informally that will replace the annual appraisal with quarterly goal-based reviews, as we actually talked about in our previous webcast. And then on top of that, there's the importance of working out what matters in terms of measurements. So when we use a performance management system, we're going to measure the skills that really matter, such as leadership, training, and development. Using all these different factors, we can really start to craft the best of both worlds from what we've had from pre-pandemic to post-pandemic, so that in the future of HR, we're going to get the most from the workforce.
Great, James. All 4 points are very relevant to the new workforce that will be shaped in the next years. And most importantly, we need to take all the measures, like you mentioned, reskilling employees, giving the skills that they need in order to be successful in the new working environment. Be transparent, because when you have two different types of workforces, for instance, the people that work in an office and people that work remotely, you need to give the same information across all levels. We need to be driven by goals, of course, and measure what matters. So we give clarity and direction to people.
So moving on to connecting a disconnected team, there have been record low levels of engagement at the beginning of the year, especially due to the pandemic. A lot of employees are working remotely from home for the very first time. A lot of people have been onboarded remotely during the pandemic, and this has all contributed to a sense of disconnection. So for 2021, it is essential that HR focus on connecting their disconnected teams. And there's a variety of ways we can do that, and we'll go into a few here. So firstly, we need to restore water cooler chat. And what this means is, since we're working from home, employees have lost the opportunity to have those spontaneous interactions that spark things like collaboration, creativity, and innovation. There's no going out to grab a coffee, there's no bumping into someone in the corridor and having a chat about a project in an informal way. All of our communication has become quite regulated due to the fact we have to organise a meeting. So what organisations need to do is try and restore what has been lost and facilitating these spontaneous interactions through virtual means. Next, there is a need to create a virtual workspace and choose the right technology to replicate these lost interactions that would normally take place in the office. There is a variety of ways to do this, and every organisation uses different tools. But having a solid communication system, a solid collaboration system, task management, a performance management system, and as well as data management system. And what these systems allow is they facilitate collaborative working, whereas your team potentially would have been sat around a table working together. Having shared documents is a really good way to restore this lost connection. Next, it is really important to monitor your workforce. Next, for a connected organisation, we need to have a continuous feedback culture. And what I mean by this is there needs to be a system whereby feedback can be given both top-down to employees, feedback on their performance, ways to improve, ways to enhance their day-to-day work. But there also needs to be bottom-up feedback where employees get the opportunity to feedback to senior leaders on how they're finding their experience. This is similar to engagement surveys, but when we say the continuous feedback culture is that we need employees to feel comfortable and accustomed to giving feedback on a regular basis. And once this culture is achieved, it will really help everyone in the organisation understand each other and increase transparency and increase collaboration as well, which will help connect your team. It is also really important to have regular check-ins at all levels within the organisation. Firstly, employee managers need to have regular check-ins on performance and also to voice any concerns in relation to well-being and work-life balance, for example. It's also really important to have regular stand-up meetings for teams, as well as departments and company town halls. Now, something that's really interesting at the moment after the pandemic is in 2019 and before, company town hall meetings where they were in-person events were quite unpopular in the sense that attendance rates were potentially quite low. But since the pandemic and since the company town halls are now virtual, there has been a spike in attendance. There are a number of factors that contribute to this. Firstly, it is more easy to access. And secondly, there are potentially more issues for employees on their day-to-day working lives, so they have more intent to voice those to senior leaders. But by leveraging regular check-ins, it's a really good way to connect your workforce as well as find out about any issues and act quickly. Finally, to create a connected team, you need to provide opportunities for meaningful work. This will give employees a sense of purpose For example, you could allow them to weigh in on team or department goal setting. This is something that you could cover in your company town hall, for example. By pulling all of these elements together, by trying to replicate the office environment as much as you can using virtual tools, by monitoring your workforce, by giving continuous feedback, by checking in regularly and giving employees a sense of purpose, these are really important steps to start connecting your disconnected team.
Last but not least, this goes on employee development. It's common for companies to scale back their employee development efforts when dealing with other priorities. But this time, it's not the time to prune the organizational budget and the development initiatives. So organizations need to focus on creating a virtual network for learners, combine learning with greater connection and intimacy, encourage upskilling in key areas like data literacy, business awareness, and tech skills, revise the training agendas, nurture critical skills, but also don't forget behavioral skills, which are very important from preparing employees for the future. Set recurring development one-on-ones to explore employee career aspirations and potential opportunities. Map out career plans and break down actions employees need to complete to move to the next career stage. It is important that we don't cut any learning opportunities that help people be more productive on a daily basis, or the ones that help them prepare for an accelerated pace of work. And the next big thing will definitely come.
Excellent, Carissa. Let's round up with some key takeaways to sum up everything that we've talked about today. Firstly, for 2021, our future focus is on HR digitization and automation. HR departments also need to reinvent the employee experience journey to accommodate for the new forces at play. They need to redesign performance management to suit both remote and office teams, and using virtual tools to replicate the office environment. It's really important to monitor engagement, well-being, work-life balance, collaboration, and diversity inclusion to keep your finger on the pulse of your organisation and respond to changes quickly. And finally, there needs to be an increased focus on setting clear employee development plans, virtual learning activities, and upskilling.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how in 2021 this actually plays out, to see to what degree everything we've talked about here will actually become reality. I can see it definitely going that way. It's just going to be interesting to see what becomes the priorities and how much we are going to really be able to keep our focus in well-being, engagement, diversity, inclusion, all these kind of really big factors in a normal office situation, moving into a more hybrid scenario.
Yeah, exactly. And hopefully we will be able to learn from this pandemic and use it to strengthen our organisational culture and our organisational management, and not forget these key initiatives once the normal is restored. And hopefully we will keep in mind that we're living in a new normal where, for example, as you mentioned, James, well-being and diversity inclusion will remain at the forefront of our minds.
Absolutely. Yep, I'm looking forward to it.
And finally, reflect how the pandemic has influenced the four key HR facets: engagement, onboarding, development, and performance, and whether it was a force, an opportunity to reshape everything and make them better.
Absolutely. Okay, great. And that's all from us in terms of content. If you would like to get some more PeopleGoal insights, feel free to download the research slides, check out upcoming and on-demand webcasts at peoplegoal.com/resources/webcasts. And finally, if you want to connect with us on our social media, find us at PeopleGoal on LinkedIn and on Twitter. Some further resources for you: feel free to check out our blog, where we cover topics such as must-have checklist for remote employee onboarding, effective employee development plans, a how-to guide, and tips for excellent remote internal communications. If you want to suggest a topic or be a guest in one of our upcoming webcasts, send me an email at maddie.o'neill@peoplegoal.com. Thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you, Carissa, and thank you, James, for your insights. It's been a really great webcast.